Hello, this is Shuckleking, and yes, I am back. Pokemon Generation League fans, this is Shuckleking, bringing you power rankings for Season 16. It's really crazy, guys. I've been going for Season 16. I think I had the Season 7 power rankings, and yeah, you guys, Season 16, that's great dedication there. Shoutouts to Meme for running the league, whoever else is running the league. Make sure you go check them out. The Discord link is linked, as well as our YouTube channel, so definitely subscribe to them. And hopefully you guys will be able to enjoy some good content out there. But yes, Meme approached me and asked me to do a video for this season, ranking all the teams. I think a little motivated with me going over basically every single Pokemon that's in the game, which was quite a crazy endeavor, and it took me a long time on my stream to do so. I broke it up into a couple chunks, but it is there if you want to reference it at some point. But yeah, specifically, we'll look at Pokemon Generations, and I'm going to rank all the teams. So, 16 teams, so it's going to take a little bit, but I'm sure you guys will enjoy this. There's probably not going to be much to see here on the screen, but I'll pull up some documents, and hopefully things will look good here. So, yeah, some rules that I have. Yeah, so first we'll go over the doc and the rules, like a quick overview and the stuff I like, and then we'll go over what I'm looking for to consider a good team. Not that I had the greatest frame of reference. I haven't made the playoffs for PPL or SPL Season 1. Hopefully SPL Season 2 I'll be able to make playoffs and have a good run there. And then we'll go over the teams. So, point valued 1 to 20 points, and 10 Pokemon, 110 points. I think all this looks pretty decent. I actually like having 10 Pokemon. I think that's a pretty good number for a team. 9 or 10? 10 is probably the best number. I know for SPL we do 10 to 12, and I feel like if you have to prep for 12 mons, it's a lot. Like, the more mons there are, it's a lot harder to prep for. And I know a lot of Showdown leagues will do 8 Pokemon, at least for tournaments and such. And I feel like 8 Pokemon can be a little limiting, so I feel like 10 is a pretty good balance there. A budget of 110, meaning that the average Pokemon is going to be 11 points. 11 times 10 is 110. Maybe, yeah, I guess we can, let's see, the draft board, what's like an average Pokemon? So you could get a team of 10 Pokemon in this tier. Mienshao, Porygon 2. I don't know if Porygon 2 is that great, especially without Tera, Cobalion, Arcanine, Crest, Dugtrio. Some pretty decent mons there, but obviously you're going to have about half above and about half below this. And when I'm saying maybe even some Pokemon in the 10 point and lower tier are going to be better is because of the Tera rules, which we'll get to in a second. All this other stuff, pretty straightforward. 4-hour pick for timer, love that. And the grace period window, I think that's perfect. 5 free agent changes. You can change your Tera, but where am I missing the Tera rules? Maybe it's on this band page list. You don't see it. I'm sure we'll get to it in a bit. Yeah, all that seems pretty decent. Here we go. 110 points for budget, and then 10 Pokemon for roster, but Terastallize rules, there we go. So a budget of 20 points to spend on 3 Tera Captains, 10 points and under. You have to have exactly 10 Pokemon on your roster. So if you have spent 109 points on your first 9 picks, you have to get a 1-pointer. It actually kind of encourages you to prep decently in advance to make sure you have 3 Pokemon that are going to be like, you probably want them to be at least like 18 to 20 points to make sure you're getting most use out of your Tera Captains. Though I did see some pretty good value of Pokemon that were pretty low point value, but I think are going to be good Tera type Captains. 3 Tera types for each of the Tera Captains, including a stab. We had something, this is basically what we have for PPL and what we have for SPL. But having 3 Pokemon and 20 points gives a little more versatility. Gives a little bit of benefit towards the lower tier Pokemon, which I always love the lower tier Pokemon. So definitely good with that. Stera type Tera cannot be used. Now maybe this was in a little bit of anticipation of Stellar being super good. honestly feel like it's a pretty underwhelming Tera option. You know what? Let me pull up SPL Season 2. I'm pretty certain, because I assume this is going up before we reveal the draft stream. So we have one. So out of all of the Tera Captains for SPL, we have one coach that picked one of their Pokemon to be stellar. So I feel like it's not going to be that overwhelmingly good. If you have a Pokemon that has a lot of coverage, then I think it's fine. But I don't know if that's a typing I would pick in general. It might be. But I don't know if Stellar has to be banned, but it's fine if it is. Not that big of a deal. All these other moves that are banned are definitely fair. I did notice that Last Respects was not banned, but like Houndstone is 15 points, so it's like appropriately priced, because Houndstone is definitely not a 15-point Pokemon without Last Respects. Evasion moves are banned. Chantel is banned. I do not believe Basket Legion can't run Last Respects, but it's a cheaper point Pokemon. Let's see, Basket Legion at 13, cheaper than it'd be more expensive if it had Last Respects. That's definitely fair. Dry passing, baton passing rules are pretty straightforward. I don't know if Revival Blessing was banned. I don't think I caught that. So Revival Blessing is going to be pretty good. Do we have a Palmon on any team? 12 points, and it's free. I feel like that's not that bad of value for Palmon. And I feel like Palmon is probably like a 10-point Pokemon with Revival Blessing being banned. So it's not bad. But yeah, Terra rules, I said, are fine. We can look at maybe like the 10, 9, 8-point tiers. See if there's any Pokemon in particular I like. I think Barraskewda is super good. At 10 points, if you get Rain, so let's see, Pelipper is available for 12, which I think is fine value for it. And Politoed was at 8. I did notice that. 8 for Politoed seems definitely tempting. A lot of times Politoed is like 11 points. And Pelipper's 12, you might as well get Pelipper at that point. But if you have that big of a difference, I think both are pretty justified. Especially because I believe Politoed has Baton Pass. No, it doesn't have Baton Pass. I don't know why I thought. Oh, you know what it is? It's Poliwrath has Baton Pass. Not Flip Turn. I think both would want to have Flip Turn, but anyway, that's there. Neither here nor there. Barraskewda seems super good. Chandelure, 145 special attack. That'd be hitting very hard. Clodsire could be very flexible defensively. Maybe like Terra Flying, Terra Water. You could even go like, maybe something that's weak to water, but then you have Water Absorb to run it. Like, you have quite a bit of options with a Terra Clodsire there. Kingdra, I think just having any weather sweeper like Barraskewda, like Kingdra, just having boosted water moves seems very good. Lokix, I think Mephisto showed how good Lokix can be because it has Tinted Lens, so even if you're not hitting super effectively, it basically becomes neutral hitting, so still hits quite hard. I saw Cloyster for 9 points. I think that's a pretty good get. And Poltegeist was banned from using Terra. So there were a couple Pokemon that were banned. Do I have the list on the side over here? Regieleki was banned. Torterra, Cloyster, Poltegeist, and Palooza. So Cloyster was banned. So you can't Terra Cloyster. That'd be crazy otherwise. Hisuian Braviary I think is okay as a Terra option. Is Rhyperior. I think Rhyperior. Kilowattrel was top 5 in kills for PPL and SPL, so I think that shows enough that Kilowattrel is quite good as a captain. Rhyperior, with having Rhyperior having Lightning Rod, you could run like Terra Water and be pretty bulky. Only being weak to grass types, and then you can run like you can run Dragon. It's probably a third option. You can run Steel, maybe not Steel, Fairy. You have a couple options right here if you want to resist water and grass pretty easily. You have options there. I think Rhyperior is super good. Torterra, Joey showed that it's pretty good, even if it doesn't have to be shell smashing, you could still run like iron defense, and I think it gets amnesia, right? Tera gets amnesia, gets iron defense. So you have like defensive capabilities there. Swords dance, I guess, if you're worried about someone trying to mirror or reverse sweep you. Yeah, Torterra is good. Espeon is good. Sinistra, I don't know how you say the name, but that seems like a quite good captain as well. Yanmega, I think Yanmega for 8 is a pretty good value, but I also see some good values in this 8 to 10 point tier that people did draft, so definitely makes sense. So before we get into ranking the top 16 teams, so this is a template of things that I generally like. So an overview, and I think something pretty important is speed. Now we can just go here and look at all the fast Pokemon. With the new DLC, there's a lot of Pokemon in this 110 base speed tier. So we got Iron Moth, we got Latios, we have Ogerpon. I don't remember, I think Ogerpon, so there's 4 different Ogerpons. So you got Ogerpon, you got Gengar, Espeon, Lycanroc, Zoroark, even Frostlass, Raichu. They're like fine lower tier options, Tauros. So a lot of base 110 Pokemon. So I feel like you probably want to have 2 Pokemon above 110 speed. And that doesn't leave a ton of options. So 111 and above. Some of these options that I'm even seeing here are not the strongest. You can ignore Arceus, but I think having speed is super important in this metagame. And I feel like 100 speed used to be the cutoff in older generations, but I really think it's 110 speed. You want 2 Pokemon that outspeed it. Or if you have like 1 Pokemon that outspeeds it, and like another really good Pokemon, like you have Latios, and maybe like what's a good speedy Pokemon? Latios, Kilowattrel. So you have like Latios, Kilowattrel, then you have like decent priority in the back. I think that's fine. Or you just have like a couple Pokemon in the 100 to 110 base speed tier and have a lot of good priority. I think that could also work. So basically you want like 2 Pokemon above 110 speed or a lot of priority. Or like a mixture of the two. You want priority no matter what, but like really reliable priority, like Azumarill, like type good priority, Mammoth, Swine, Ice Shard. A couple options there. Scizor, Bullet Punch. So that's what I'm looking for speed-wise. You want probably 2 sweepers. These are all the moves here on the side, and I'll be able to filter them out. I have this all filtered on the side. Now, defog on this document, and this is Ballhawk's document, I believe. I just have it copied a bunch of times. It's a very good document, so use this as like a recommendation to look at teams. There's like Pokemon teams here you could store a bunch of teams, have a matchup center so you can see the sprites and such. So this document's quite good, and it has all the moves listed here. But I think a lot of the moves here are from older generations. Like a lot of Pokemon lost access to defog, so there's going to be Pokemon on the list in the future that show that they have defog, but they actually don't. But these are all the most important moves that I'm looking for on teams. So Stealth Rocks, you want to be able to chip your opponent's Pokemon down as much as possible. And I think, was it Keegan that was saying this argument? I think it was interesting. Like, you probably want to default running heavy-duty boots in all your Pokemon, and then you should have a reason why you're not going to run heavy-duty boots. Outside of like Reuniclus, something with Magic Guard, you can like obviously not run boots. But default, you probably want to run boots to make sure you avoid all these hazards. But hazards are quite good, and you want to force your opponent to run heavy-duty boots. So spikes, there's enough spikes users that you probably want to get one on your team. Toxic spikes are definitely nice to have. And if you don't have a grounded poison, it's usually pretty bad for you. It's not the end of the world. And it's honestly not the end of the world to not have toxic spikes. It's just something your opponent has to prep for. Sticky webs, again, you don't have to have it, plus to have it if you do. Defog, rapid spin, court change can also fall into here. Mortal spin, ways to remove hazards. Definitely nice to have those options. If you get spike stacked and you're forced to run boots in every Pokemon, that means you're not running Scarf or running resist berries or something like that. You want to have some momentum on the team. Not the most important thing, but definitely good to have to when you want to switch, especially if you have like fast Pokemon with U-turn. It's always a good combination there. You can see if your opponent stays in, and then you can go into a counter to resist a move, or if you see your opponent hard switch out. So switch out without using Volt Switch or U-turn, you can gain momentum, deal a little bit of damage in the process, especially not with Baton Pass, but at least with these Volt Switch, U-turn, and Flip Turn. Knockoff, good to have. If you have no knockoff users or like no users that'll actually run knockoff, like Reuniclus is a good example. Reuniclus has knockoff, but if Reuniclus is your knockoff member on your team and you have nothing else that uses knockoff, Reuniclus is going to run knockoff maybe 1 out of every 10 games or something like that. So you want to have reliable members that can remove items like boots, and then your hazards will start to stack up. Taunt, good to have Taunt. Make sure setup isn't that problematic or sending up a bunch of hazards. Healing Wish is a move I like to prioritize on my teams. There are pretty limited Healing Wish users, a lot of them being pink blobs. But Latios being in the game is nice. I like Latios like in that regard. Drachi is a cool Healing Wish user, Gardevoir. You have options that aren't passive for Healing Wish, but be able to heal up a Pokemon to full. You could also throw a Lunar Dance with Cresselia, like something like that. Memento kind of works too, but I feel like actually healing your member up to full, especially if you have like what's a really good Pokemon. If you have a Urshifu single or a Zamazenta Crown, you could just heal it up to full a second time without using Wish. Wish is also an option too. Yeah, Wish is good. I don't prioritize getting this on every team, but having a Wish user is nice to have. The ability to heal up a member on your team when you don't expect you expect that damage to stay, but you could heal it up. And then these last moves are Dragon Dance or Shell Smash. You want a way to win the game. Quiver Dance also works in here too. You want speed plus some type of attacking form to try to win. Tidy Up. Not a ton of Pokemon have it, but a way to boost your speed and boost an attack. I like to have that option. At least probably 2 options. One really good option and one okay option. Shoutouts to the train. That can win you games. Priority is good to have on the team. I didn't have it listed here, but priority users are definitely nice just because there's a lot of moves that have priority. And then, like I have here on my notes on the side here, a mode that you can just spam for free. So, like, I'd say a mode would be like Rabami Sticky Webs. You could go Rain. You can go Sun. A Trick Room mode. A ton of priority mode. Is basically stacking on one particular thing that like you could win the game with. You could even go like Slow King. What's in Chilly Reception into like Sand Slash, Alolan Sand Slash, or Bear Tick or something like that. Just like a really, usually a speedy option. It doesn't have to be. You could easily go super slow with Trick Room, but a mode where you could go and bring it to a game and you have a chance to win. Like if you bring T-Tar plus Escadrille, you could always just be fast enough, get a Sword Stance and Iron Head flinch to win, or just be super strong. So I like a mode where you have like a couple Pokemon that like could be brought to a game even if the matchup doesn't look great. If you run that, you'll have a chance to win, even if it's small. So I like having that option there. So yeah, I guess we'll start getting into the teams. Scarlet Ari being the first, or this is the number 16 team, and there's a lot of cool teams for sure. I don't think Eddie, like maybe these first couple teams I wasn't a big fan of, but I think a lot of these teams are super good in this league. I was starting like at the beginning. How did I started looking just at rosters. So I looked at Christian's roster first. Actually, I think I looked at Eltris's roster first, and then I started here and just went to went down the line. It's like, this roster's good. Oh, this roster's good. So it's definitely tough. Kind of hard to like gauge like when like draft value of a lot of the Pokemon here. Urshifu, Rapid, Water. Like, it's not even the first Pokemon listed here. I like when the rosters are shown by when they're drafted as opposed to the most expensive. A lot of these are sorted by most to least expensive, not necessarily the draft order. So it's hard to say, like, you got Hydrappled, which is probably not good value as the first mon, but you got to respect it. So this is the first team here, and this is actually the first team that's listed, Miami Mantines. So what do I have here? It is, well, first I have, I'm using this doc, so I have all the, here's another random team. I have the doc here for all 16, so we're going to be going in order. All Stealth Rock Spike users on the side here. We can see the speeds that are listed here. This region here, we can see if there's a particular type that you have a good matchup against, so green. If it's neutral, it's gray, and if you have a poor matchup into, it's red. So ideally, you don't have a lot of reds in this area. This will show how many of these type of Pokemon you have on the team. We can ignore this, and these are the points that all the Pokemon were for. And the Tera options listed here. This doc didn't have a great way to show the Tera typing, so I have them on the side here. So Iron Thorns is Tera, Electric, Flying, and Ghost. I think interesting type. I don't know about Ghost, but I think Electric and Flying seem pretty good. Maybe Grass would be a decent option. But you have Hydrapple, so I guess that's fair. And if you want just a Ghost to block Rapid Spin, definitely fair with having a Rabambi team. Rabambi is Ghost, Tera, which I like, and Fairy and Ground. I think that's pretty good typings there. And then Tera, Ice, Electric, and Fighting, Eloge, and Sandslash. So I think this team has a lot of modes, which I quite enjoy. The Sandslash plus the Slowking, I think I gave that as the example. Kind of forgetting this was the lowest team on my list. Rabambi is cool with Sticky Webs. And Iron Thorns, I think, is like, I think it can definitely shine as a Tera Captain. Like, I haven't seen it really do anything in any format, but hopefully it does well. And Cleaver seems like just a really, really cool Pokemon to use. Definitely been wanting to try it. And I think for 8 points, Iron Thorns is pretty good value. I'm hoping Iron Thorns does pretty well in this. But yeah, like this team, the highlight is definitely the Hazard users. Rock users being great, and Cleaver Orb setting up rocks without even having to click the move Stealth Rocks is a pretty nice option. You also have good momentum with Urshifu. Rabambi's probably not going to run it a whole lot, but Cleave Orb, Iron Jugulis, Urshifu, and then maybe even Iron Thorns, I guess, Volt Switch. You're not going to run that a ton, but it's an option. Definitely cool there, but the cons on this team, it's slow. Now, you have Rabambi, which is good, 124 speed. But again, I say my guideline for speed is 2 Pokemon above 110, or have very good priority. And his team doesn't have much of either. Urshifu Aqua Jet is fine. Skuntank, Sucker Punch is fine. And then you have Speed, which is all in Sandslash in the snow, but it takes quite a bit to set that up. And Urshifu, you don't want it to be a Scarf for a ton. You'd like to have Protective Pads, Trailblaze, Banded. Yeah, mainly those options. Scarf is fine, but you're underutilizing it. And again, I think a lot of Pokemon are going to be just running webs for free again, or not webs. You're going to be running boots a lot because you have Rabambi with sticky webs. And you don't have a lot of Pokemon that'll outspeed and punish you for running boots as opposed to a different item. You do have a little bit of knockoff to try to remove boots. Iron Jugulis isn't going to run knockoff a lot. I don't think Sandslash is going to be running it a lot, or you want it to try to sweep in Sandslashes. And so I think Skuntank is going to be the main knockoff Pokemon, and if you're running knockoff, Skuntank is one of your 6 you're bringing every week, then that's probably a win, because you don't want to be running Skuntank a lot, being that it's your least expensive Pokemon here. What else do I have? Hydrapple being the first pick, probably not great, and Hydrapple being 16 points, where I think we have it at 11 or 12 for SPL, and I even didn't go undrafted. No, it didn't go. It went drafted, but at 11. points. And I don't even think it went in the first couple rounds. I mean, you go for it because you want to get Hydrapple. That's fine as a new Pokemon. But even then, like, Urshifu being, like, your best Pokemon, Rapid, not that impressed by it, even though we have it banned in SBL. Heatran, Slowking, like, they're okay, but Heatran being your third best Pokemon seems pretty underwhelming. I'm just not too impressed by the top of the team. Rock Weakness is pretty tough when you have the Ribombee, when you have the Iron Jugulis, Cleavor are all weak to it. And your resist is Urshifu. And Urshifu, you don't want to be taking a ton of hits, especially, like, not special attacking hits. There's not a ton of special attacking rock types. It's like, that's not the worst, but just having to take repeated rock type attacks is not going to be great. I wouldn't be too afraid to face this team. And also, strong fighting types are also quite good against this team. You'd have to, like, Tera out of Iron Thorns. Ribombee is quad resistant to it, but again, probably going to be most of the time dying in the first couple turns, getting up sticky webs. Slowking doesn't honestly want to take a ton of choice banded fighting type hits. And then your top don't want to either. I feel like something like an Iron Boulder would just destroy this team. In the 15 slot, we have Zand. Now, I, again, don't know how to pronounce all these names, but hopefully I get close. The speed, always got to look at speed first. Speed isn't great. Is there a good amount of priority users on the team? Not really. You do have Indeedee plus Hawlucha, which gives you elite speed, and that's like a mode. So I'm a fan of that. The Tera types on this team are Indeedee has Psychic, Fairy, and Fighting. I think they're pretty good. Tera, Grass, Water, Ground, Go-Go, good typings there. And then Electric, Flying, Ice, Magneton. I think all those typings are fine. I don't know about Flying, but it gives you the, probably go Grass over Flying, but Flying gives you the immunity to Ground, so that's okay. It also gives you a resist to Fighting types, so that's fair to go that route. Pros. I feel like you have basically everything that I'm looking for in a team. So why is it so low? Because it seems kind of underwhelming, but we'll get there in a bit. You have Rocks, Spikes, Overquill's a great Pokemon. You have Removal with Rapid Spin with Terapagos. Seems pretty reliable of getting rid of removal, getting rid of hazards. I'm not quite sure because I haven't seen this Pokemon in action yet. You have like a little bit of Flip Turn. You have Knockoff. Swampert Knockoff is not the best, but it's okay. You have even Healing Wish options to heal up Gouging Fire or maybe get a Hawlucha back in the game a second time. Though that's going to be tough because you want to sweep the first time. You have Dragon Dance, Gouging Fire. Hawlucha can Sword Stance under Terrain and win the game. Go-Go's even a pretty cool Tera option. Downsides are the ground resist in this team are Go-Go, which is definitely fine. I think it's pretty good for a 3-point value. And Hawlucha. And Hawlucha is not going to be wanting to switch on, say, a Rhyperior. You're going to switch in Hawlucha, predicting an Earthquake. And if you go for a, like Stone Edge, you're taking a ton of damage. And you could definitely run Stone Edge on a switch in. Like Swampert's fine. It's like okay as a ground resist. Terapagos can take a hit, at least initially, at 100% health with not that big of a deal. If I'd want better ground resist, especially if your top two Pokemon are Gouging Fire and Jirachi, I want better ground resist than what's on the team right now. I think Tera Overquill is a pretty cool option to have. I'd probably go Tera Overquill over Tera Indeedee. Even though I think the Tera typings are fine in Indeedee, I think Overquill having access to Swift Swim plus Rain, now could be something that could be brought a week and becomes a lot more threatening with Tera than Indeedee. Though Indeedee can hit pretty hard with the terrain boost. Team is slow and not a ton of priority. Really have to rely on Gouging Fire to sweep. Maybe Jirachi running Choice Scarf a lot. Which honestly, it's probably going to run Choice Scarf close to every week. Because what are you going to run on this team Choice Scarfed? Maybe Magneton, but it's a 6-point mon. It's not coming a lot. Indeedee could, I suppose. Probably none of these Pokemon want to run Scarf at any of Jirachi. You want to run Jirachi Scarf a ton. It's fine in that role. But I feel like Scarf Ironhead is pretty underwhelming. With like Rocky Helmet being definitely a viable option. And Scarf 100 speed is not the most impressive. There's faster Pokemon out there. Like a lot of faster Pokemon out there than like a Scarfdirachi. Yeah, and more support for gouging fire to sweep is something I have here. I think it's not bad. Like, you have flip turn Swampert into gouging fire, and like you try to win. Like, if you want to bring in your grass type on Swampert, you flip turn, go into gouging fire, and then start setting up, or just walling stuff. Sylveon can pass wishes and baton passes into gouging fire. But I'd like a little bit more removal on a team if gouging fire, like, it's going to be the sweeper. You don't want to run boots. Gouging fire a lot, that's no fun. So again, I mean, I don't even think this team is the worst for sure, but I feel like having a little bit more speed, maybe change the Tera type into Overquill. I think there are a couple small changes that could help the team. Maybe getting a little bit better of a viable Scarfer. Maybe you don't even need Magneton and can maybe get a better Scarfer in that role. Because I don't think you really need to trap steals a ton. It's okay for Sylveon, but I don't think it's that important. Cram in the 14 slot. So you got the Tera typings the Tera types are really cool in this team. Terastallize with Water, Grass, and Dark. You have Tera Electric, Steel, Fairy, Electros, and then you have Tera Flying, Fighting, Normal, Scyther. Normal Scyther's interesting if you want to get like Swords Dance boosted quick attacks, which is probably the goal of this. The pros in this team, I like the Inteleon a lot. Fast Pokemon, like those speed tiers, this looks pretty good to me. The priority on the team is Slitherwing, which plus Scyther. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. First impression, Slitherwing hits pretty hard. 135 attack is something you don't want to mess with. So the speed on this team, definitely very good. Tera and Inteleon, I like a lot. Having grass and being able to beat water types makes it a lot better than a 7-point Pokemon. And there's a lot of momentum on the team. Look at a Slitherwing, Scyther, Inteleon, Electros. Shed Tail is banned on Cyclizar, but you run U-turn, Volt Switch, like Flip Turn, Inteleon. Like, there's a ton of momentum on this team. And you just click Bring in Chi-Yu and just click Overheat or click Dark Pulse and you win the game, right? But a couple downsides in the team. Like, these Pokemon here are just not threatening. Like, Iron Trez is like fine as your second best Pokemon, but then you have Slitherwing as your third best Pokemon. It seems not that impressive. I had Slitherwing in an 8 Pokemon league, and I feel like I didn't bring him more often than not. Reuniclus is fine. I feel like the bulk is fine on Reuniclus, but it might get overwhelmed with power creep. Amoonguss I don't think is that good. Diancie is not that good without Tera. Like, Diancie with Tera would be amazing. Cyclizar with Tera would be amazing. But I don't know if it's worth getting rid of Tera on Electros and Scyther for Diancie and or Cyclizar. It might be worth it, honestly. You're also giving up 4 points, and it kind of shows that you have 4 points remaining after all your picks, because like this range here is not that threatening. Like, I'm not worried to face this team. Like, Chi-Yu is definitely a Pokemon to be worried about facing. It hits super hard. But even like Iron Treads is your second best Pokemon as opposed to your third best Pokemon. Like, I probably want this to be my third best Pokemon on my team, if that makes sense. Yeah. Ground Resist, I have as a note here. Your Ground Resist are Electros and Scyther. And I guess having Tera Axes on those Pokemon, especially Tera Axes with Electros, to always be immune to ground, is good to have. And then Slitherwing is also a Ground Resist, but it has 85, 79 defenses. Not great bulk for Slitherwing. I feel like you want better ground type resist to handle the threats against Chi-Yu. It's just like underwhelming power, but the defensive backbone is like pretty good. Reuniclus, Amoonguss, Diancie. Like, I feel like it could be better. Amoonguss can be pretty limiting in what it can check. It can be pretty passive. Reuniclus leases Calm Mind to get past threats. But yeah, maybe like Tera Diancie makes it so much better. I would probably figure out a way to put Tera on Diancie. It might be worth it to get rid of the Tera on Electros and Scyther to be able to Tera Diancie. You probably want to have the electric typing for the most part on Electros. Maybe you have Tera Fairy on this, right? Yeah, Tera Fairy is fine. Tera Steel is even okay, but I don't think that's really needed. I might even get rid of both these Terras to Tera Deity, but then at that point you need a third Pokemon to Tera with. So it's kind of hard to allocate the points there. I feel like you'd have to move a lot of Pokemon to make it work. Maybe it's the Cyclizar for something else, but Cyclizar is good with the speed. So like, it'd be like sacrificing a lot of things. I don't really know how I would necessarily fix this team, but it's like it's not even that bad. But I guess I needed someone at 14. And now at 13 we have Eltris. And I think this is the first team I looked at, and I was like, oh, this seems pretty good. But there's just a lot of good teams in this league. We have Tera, Electric, Ice, and Fairy on Jolteon. I like this Pokemon as a Tera Captain, so you're in the good. Tera Fairy, Water, and Ground and Comfy. I like this as a Tera Captain, you're in the good. And then Tera Flying, Ground, and Fairy Altaria. Yeah, I like this Tera Captain a lot. Like at least if I took these notes a while ago, but like these are 3 very good Tera Captains for the prices too. Like Altaria for a 3-point Tera Captain is great value, and I think you picked good typings on Altaria. I'd probably go Steel on it, but Ground Fairy I think can work. The pros of this team, look at all these knockoff users. Getting rid of items, definitely great there. Yeah, I even have my notes. I'd go Steel, Altaria. I think you'd want that on the team, but you do have Goodra, which is fine against it. But Altaria at least is immune to ground before you Tera, and then you can go the Steel typing. So I think that's fine there. The Rockers are okay. Palisand is not the best Pokemon. It's pretty underwhelming, and I think for 8 points, that's pretty expensive to get Palisand. And then Necrozma's going to be running Stealth Rocks, but Necrozma's your best Pokemon. You don't want that to run Rocks a lot. No Spikes, and I feel like you'd want Spikes to try to get Volcarona to set up and win. And Defog, I don't know if Altaria defogs, but Comfy, Conkeldurr has defog as well, so you have a couple removal options. Yeah, it's your weak. Yeah, I think that's one of the downside. Like the hazards just aren't great on this team, because you don't want to run Rocks Necrozma, and you don't really want to bring Palisand, which is kind of weird. And like Palisand, what's the 85 HP and 75 special defense? It's not great. And if you're gonna run Electric type that runs like Hit and Power Ice, like you're just taking a ton of damage. That's like super easy to predict to get it to a KO, and then you're not looking great. You have Necrozma, Volcarona, Zarude. I feel like these are kind of underwhelming as your best Pokemon on your team. I think Volcarona, you want the Tera, so I think it being at 15 points and not being able to Tera is pretty tough on it. Necrozma lost a decent amount of moves. It lost Toxic, it lost Autonomize. There's enough move that it lost to where like you probably don't want to pay 16 points for it either. Maybe a point or two lower, probably a couple points lower for Volcarona. Zarude is fine at 14. You probably want to pay a little less for Conkeldurr as well. Tax Pest for 11 is fine value. But yeah, I'm not sure. Your Scarfers on this team are Zarude. You can run Scarf Jolteon. You can even run Flame Orb Jolteon and be super fast. That's fine. Plus Scarf Zarude is okay. And then you have Priority and Comfy. So you have like and Priority and Conkeldurr. So it's like okay. The team's a little bit slow. You'd probably want a second Pokemon above 110. But you could just run Scarf Zarude, and you handle most of them. Not like Iron Moth, I guess, because you could run Booster Energy on Iron Moth, but you're fine if you wanted to run Scarf against a lot of the base 110 with Zarude, but then that becomes a little bit predictable. And, yeah, I feel like the offensive breaking power is, like, fine, but not that fast. Like Zarude, you probably want to run Scarf, so it's not going to be breaking as well. Necrozma, you want to probably run setup on this. Conkeldurr is slow, and you also need to get Flame Orb activated, which you have okay-ish momentum to get that happen. Shoutouts to the train between Comfy and Jolteon, because you're probably not going to run momentum on Necrozma. Oh no, that's not Necrozma, Zarude. Zarude is going to be fine momentum getting Conkeldurr. You just have to activate the Flame Orb for it to hit like super, super hard. And Toxbus is like a fine pivot. I also don't really see the mode on this team to consistently win. Like Trick Room is going to be kind of not there. I guess the mode on this team is just running Tera Jolteon to try to sweep and win, Tera Comfy to maybe Tera sweep and win, and having ground on this is pretty nice to hit steel types. You're not hitting Corviknight, but you honestly might be able to beat it at +6 anyway. Corviknight's pretty weak. Outside of like Whirlwind or whatever. And Altaria, that can be a low-key threatening Dragon Dance sweeper. Next we have E. Noeller with the strong Zamazenta crown. Ooh, that's cool. Something I'd like to try. Tera options are Tera Umbreon with Dark Poison Fairy. I think I ran that last SPL season, so shoutouts. Water Ghost Rock Basculin and Electric Normal Grass Luxray. Those Tera options are fine. 8 points for Basculin seems way too much. It's definitely not that good. 3 points for Gligar is actually crazy good, the value though. So that's like, maybe if like those values were reversed, I feel more justified in this. But like the bad value in this plus the good value in this probably makes it like that's not that bad actually. An Am plus Latias seems like a really good speedy combination between the two to break for each other. And like these three offensive Pokemon, Zamazenta and Amber's Latias, that's a pretty good combination that should be able to win you a good amount of games. I have my notes that you should probably want Zamazenta to be like top 3 in kills with how well like the team is supported to make sure Zamazenta wins. Otherwise, you're probably not going to win if Zamazenta doesn't set up for the general most part. Cons, Garganacl for 14 points, Volcanion for 13. They're both pretty expensive. I feel like you might have been able to get better Pokemon like in this range to compensate if you had like spent less points on these two slots. So it's fine, but 14 is a lot when you can't Tera Garganacl. Rapid Spin with Serena is fine, and your Zamazenta isn't weak to rocks, which is okay. Or you just run Boots on an Amherst a lot of the times, which can work, but I think Scarf is going to be pretty good on this because your Scarfers on this team would be, I guess, Scarf Basculin maybe with Flip Turn, Scarf Latias, and then Scarf and Amherst. I think Scarf and Amherst seems like the best option out of all of them. The momentum on the team is not great, so it's going to be a little bit hard to get your Zamazenta in. It's Gligar plus Serena. I wouldn't really put Volt Switch Luxray as that threatening. And Serena you don't want to be bringing every week either. Though it did get triple axle, right? Serena triple axle. It did get triple axle, so it's definitely better. You basically have to rely on low tier Pokemon to be your physical breakers, like Basculin, Luxray, Serena. It could be Zamazenta, but you want Zamazenta to just come in and win the game. You don't really want it to be your physical breaker and switch out and switch in with Dauntless Shield. You just want to be able to sweep right away. Cool team, though. Speed might be a little bit better. The priority on the team is Aqua Jet on Basculin, right? I think that's basically it. And I think Serena might have Fake Out. There's not a ton. I think Umbreon gets Quick Attack, too. But yeah, the physical breaking on the team is kind of weak outside of Zamazenta. Beyond, I have in the 11 slot. So we have Tera Normal, Ice, and Fighting on Tinchino. I have Electric Ice Flying on Raichu, and Bug Fairy Ghost on Volbeat. Volbeat, I don't know, I guess you have to have 3 Pokemon as your Tera Captain, so I guess you're kind of stuck to having it. And I probably go Tinchino and Raichu over Incineroar in this slot, so I think those Tera Captains are fine. Pretty balanced offensive approach here, like Landorus, Latios, Keldeo, Ogerpon, like pretty good offense there. Good combination. Incineroar for momentum and Polion for momentum. 2 starter types, that's neat. Hatterene could be Baton Pass or like a eject button. It's cool. This is like a very good offensive team, which is unfortunate is at 11. It just means I like 10 teams more, but like I wouldn't be upset if this is my team that I ended up drafting. Like good speed. Like you have 3 Pokemon at the 110 speed tier, so might be a little easy to like predict with speed tiers and such, and especially with a 1-8 Keldeo. but it's okay. I think your rockers are fine. Spikes with Ogerpon is definitely fine. A ton of momentum. Look at all these options here. That's a crap ton. And a lot of knockoffs. So removing items. You could definitely afford to have like a Scarfer every week. And you have decent options to pick as your Scarfer. What do I have on the downsides? A lot of Pokemon being at the same speed. 115 to 108. It's fast. It would have been cool to have like a 120 plus speed to hat in conjunction with all these 110 Pokemon. But I think it's fine. The priority on the team is really not there. You have like Fake Ed and Incineroar and I guess Volbeat. No grounded poison though. It's not the like your Landers doesn't care about grounded poison or toxic spikes. Latios doesn't care about toxic spikes. And Polion doesn't. Hatterene will bounce them away. So it's like not the big. Incineroar probably runs Boots a lot. So it's like not the biggest deal. But you just prefer to have the option and not have to like run Magic Bounce Hatterene to take on T-Spikes because you're going to get hit super effectively by a poison type. But a lot of Toxic Spike users are pretty weak, and Hatterene probably takes a hit, and Hatterene might honestly kill in return with a Psychic move. So it's fine. The Tera options I feel like could be better. They're fine. But I think it's below average based on the other stuff I've seen. Good power between these 4 Pokemon. I don't really see a mode. Like, even like some of these lower teams, like the mode of Slowking and the Sandslash being able to maybe just win the game. Mode on this team would probably just be Chi-Yu just breaking really hard. Like, there's nothing on the team that breaks super, super hard. Latios needs, like, Calm Mind, but it's slow enough to be Revenge Kill. Chi-Yu just hits so hard. It's, like, a mode in and of itself. Like, I don't really see, like, Trick Room Hatterene doesn't really set up something else particular. Like, I'm not really seeing, like, a creative mode to consistently win games. Or, like, a mode. But I think the team is quite good. A lot of momentum, and you have pretty good breakers here. So, seems like a good team. Definitely, like, playoff worthy. At 10, I have J-Bone 832. And this is, like, a really off-the-wall team, but a team that I like. We got Tera Flying, Fire, and Normal. Noivern, which seems weird having Tera Normal, but I guess having Boom Bushers hit that hard, I mean, that's fine. Tera Fairy, Steel Water on Granbull, and Tera Ice, Ground, Fire on Frostmoth. I like the Tera on Frostmoth. Like, I feel like that can just sweep. I feel like you want to have Tera on Floatzel. It'd be really cool if this team also had like a Pelipper and you have like a rain mode on this team. But yeah, a couple of pros in this team, great speed. Noivern, Regieleki, even though it's like easily counterable, like I think Regieleki is fine. 9 points is a lot for something that's super predictable. And what are your ways to hit ground types? You have Tentacruel plus Floatzel. You have Frostmoth to set up on them. Gliscor doesn't care about Earthquake. Even Scizor, Noivern, like you have enough ways to handle grounds. So I think Regieleki is definitely fine on this team. Floatzel at pretty elite speed, especially if you get that with Rain, that'd be even higher speed. Iron Moth can go boost energy speed and be super fast. And then you even have like Urshifu priority, you have Scizor priority, so like you have really, really good speed control in this team. Maybe one of the best in the league. So that's great. Your momentum is also super good. All these U-turn users, flip turn, even Voltsoted Regieleki, really neat there. Your top Pokemon is Urshifu single, doesn't like to handle fairies. So you have Iron Moth, which is a poison type and kills any fairy. Gliscor could set up hazards in front of them. Scizor kills fairies. Tentacruel seems like a pretty cool Pokemon, especially for 8 points. That's great value. It has Sword Stance now and like Gunk Shot. So it had Sword Stance before, but not Gunk Shot. So Tentacruel can actually like do okay stuff on the physical side. And you have like a lot of cool modes here. Like the priority's really good. Gliscor can like surprising sweep games. You have Booster Energy, Iron Moth. Urshifu gets up Sword Stance plus Sucker Punches. Even Frostmoth can go for Quiver Dance sweeps, and like it's kind of hard to predict what Tera typing you're going to be. I like Tera Water on it, but Ground and Fire's okay. I would like Rain to support Floatzel, but you could run Rain Dance somewhere on the team into Floatzel. And like that could also be a scary option there too. Some of the cons, your Stealth Rock and Spikes users is Gliscor, so it's gonna be hard to use Gliscor as like a setup Sword Stance option, which you probably want a little bit more versatility in your rocker option and just having Gliscor setup hazards. Flying type resists are your Regieleki, which Regieleki revenge kills basically any flying type, right? Outside of Gliscor, and you have Gliscor, so it's not the worst, but you don't really have anything to switch into the ground types. Like Noivern obviously is there too, but flying types, like I don't know what you switch in, especially special flying types like Tornadus. Like Tornadus like destroys this team. Just hope you don't face Tornadus and you'll be fine. Yeah, Tera Floatzel I think would be quite good in this team. It would mean you'd have to get rid of Tera Noivern and Tera Frostmoth, and I don't think you really get rid of either. Maybe Tera Noivern you don't need to have, and I'd probably Tera Floatzel. It just becomes super, super strong. And maybe pick up a Pelipper. So maybe trade Noivern. I saw Politoed was 8 points, so you could pick up a Politoed maybe in one of these slots here. Because like these 3 Pokemon are like good removal and good speed, so maybe you sacrifice one of these 3 Pokemon to get Politoed or Pelipper. And I feel like that helps your team out a lot more. Pretty hard to rank this team. I like it quite a bit. But there's like definitely pretty glaring flaws, like having one Stealth Rocker. King Belgarion 2-7 is in the 9 slot, and again, this team looks super, super good. Like these 3 Pokemon here, 4 Pokemon: Iron Bundle, Torn-T, Ogerpon, Heartflame, King Gambit. Like, oof. I mean, it just shows how good the teams are in this league. So, the Dunsparce is Tera Normal, Steel, and Fairy. I think good typings. Ghost is an interesting typing, but I think the ones you have are good. Tera Dragon, Water, and Fighting, Dragalge. And Pokemon has no switch-ins. Maybe I'd go Poison over Fighting, but Fighting to hit Steel types, definitely fair. Especially with having Torn, that doesn't want to hit Fighting types either. King Gambit, I think that's fine. Tera Fighting on Dragalge. And Tera Flying, Granite, Steel, and Masquerain. Masquerain for 3 points seems like really good value. Maybe even like a more justified Quiver Dance user than necessarily just setting up sticky webs and dying first turn. A lot of momentum on the team that I think is quite good. Ogerpon, Torn-T, even Masquerain to an extent. Voltwitch, Ampharos, I think Ampharos is fine for 3 points. Iron Bundle with momentum. Dragalge with slow momentum to get in your really strong offensive top 4. Seems pretty good. And like King Gambit, like could always sit in the back. King Gambit is a mode where it could just 5 Pokemon die, and then you basically have a choice band boost, and you could just win the game with King Gambit with Supreme Overlord. I like it quite a bit. Booster Iron Bundle gives you elite speed as well, with 136 speed. It's kind of crazy. I really like the speed in this team. Iron Bundle plus Torn-T plus Heartflame, like, I really like it. The downsides. Rocker options are okay. Quagsire doesn't want to run rocks a lot. I feel like Spikes are pretty good in Quagsire. But Quagsire is pretty low base stats, something like you can take advantage of Quagsire, though it forces like either that they break super hard or it kind of prevents setup, so it's okay. King Gambit doesn't really want to run rocks. The Dunsparce could run rocks in a pinch. I feel like it's better as like a Roost, Coil, like an annoying Calm Mind, something like that with Dunsparce. I feel like you want to use it a little bit more flexible in that role. You couldn't run it as rocks, but I feel like you'd want better rockers in the team. There's no removal in this team. Like, these options here are not removal that are in Generation 9. So, like, I think that's why this team's at 9, where it could be significantly higher if you had hazard removal. And you have no hazard removal against an Iron Bundle, Torn-T, and an Ogerpon Heartflame team. All 3 Pokemon weak to rocks. And you can't even run boots on Heartflame, so seems pretty tough to rank it any higher than this. And I think if you did have, like, average removal on the team, maybe even below average, this could be a top 3 team here. The ground resist on the team, or Masquerain would not going to run. You're not going to really want it to be ground resist too often, and Torn-T, both weak to rock types. And Torn-T, especially if you're going to have to run boots every week when having removal, seems tough to be a consistent switch in the ground types. Iron Bundle plus Torn-T, cool offensive options there, but you're going to have to rely on Hydro, you're going to have to rely on Bleak Windstorm or Hurricane. Not great. Good luck with landing moves this season. And I feel like you'd probably want a better physical breaker, like a second one on the team. Ogre Palm is good. Kingambit you probably want to run as like the last Pokemon on the team type of deal, and then none of these Pokemon are really great physical threats. But yeah, cool team for sure. You probably want to get removal though. I have Sandan at 8, so this is the first team in the top half. And this is a weird team here. So we got Tera Water, Ghost, Ground, Vaporeon. Ground to resist water is having water absorbed plus the way to have ground, which is normally super effective against it. It's a cool combo. Tera Normal, Ghost, and Fairy on Blissey. Tera Ground, Water, Flying on Camerupt. And I think the Tera options are fine. Vaporeon just it seems like a pretty good option with Ground. You don't take you take Electric hits, so you're only weak to Grass. Maybe the Ghost would be cool to not have like something resist Grass, but you want to make sure you keep hazards in the field with Skarmory or Bramblegast. Having Ghost is fine in that regard, especially if you don't bring Bramblegast. You bring Skarmory and then you bring Ghost Vaporeon to Rapid Spin Black. Pros in this team: very bulky. Like Skarm, bulky, Skeletor's bulky, Screamtail, Vaporeon, Blissey, Bramblegast, Camerupt, like these. And Slowking. 8 Pokemon that are known to be pretty bulky. Thundurus T was Ames, defensive captain. Pretty good bulk with Thundurus, and then Roaring Moon is not going to be taking many hits. It's okay, it's pretty decent on the special defensive side, but physical defensive side, it's a lot to be desired. But it has enough. I feel like I'm good enough with the breaking power on the team. Slowking deals hits fine, and takes hits for days. Thundurus is really good special breaker. Roaring Moon is a really good physical breaker. I probably want a little bit more breaking power on the team, but it's okay. The speed on the team is also okay. You can run Booster, Roaring Moon. You could be Scarfed. You could be Scarfed Thundurus. You could be Booster Screamtail. You have enough speed options that are I'm fine with it for a bulky team. I don't think you're that predictable. The cons in the team, the removal is pretty limited. You have Defog on Skarm, which you can definitely run. You can run Boots on a lot of Pokemon to negate that, and then Rapid Spin on Bramblegast. Defog on Skarm is pretty good, but that means you want to ideally run Spikes and then Roost and then Defog, and then you only have one move left, maybe Body Press or Brave Bird or something like that. I don't know if that's a set you're going to be running a ton with this team, but it's something you could. You're kind of worn down to Knockoff. You don't really have a great Dark Switch in, which is your Roaring Moon. Everything else in the team is hit at least neutrally, if not super effective, by Dark types, and none of your Tera Captains handle that. You don't have a Fairy that resists Dark. The Screamtail it's bulky enough that you could live most hits, and you're fast enough to where you deal a Fairy hit first, but it's not going to be that strong of a Fairy hit. Weavile seems pretty good against this team. And also strong Rock types seem pretty strong. Your Rock resists are... What do your Rock resist? Oh, you have none. Yeah, no Rock resists. I guess Camerupt and you Tera Ground with it would be your Rock resist. Tera Ground Vaporeon also kind of helps with it, but yeah, being that weak to Rock seems not great. But yeah, interesting team here. Cyber in the 7 slot, we have Tera Ice, Electric Fairy on the Rotom. We have Tera Ground, Fire, and Steel on the Flygon. And Tera Normal, Fighting Fairy on the Munchlax. Okay, so you have Elite Momentum here. You have Talonflame, Lokix, Greninja, Flygon, Pheasantipity. That's after you're probably not running U-Turn on. Annihilate. A ton of U-Turning on this team. And you have good hazards. You have Spikes from Gren, which is great. You have Archulodon to set up Rocks, which is definitely pretty reliable. You could run Rocks and Annihilate, but if you really wanted, probably not. You could run Rocks and Flygon. You're probably not. But your Spiker being probably the best one in the game kind of makes up for the Rockers being okay at best. It would be better if you had another Rocker. A ground type Rocker on the team looks pretty good. I mean, you have Flygon, but I feel like Flygon, you want to run Dragon Dance set up a lot with the Flygon. You have Lokix, and I don't think low kicks was Tera banned. I probably run Tera low kicks, Tera Flygon, and just get a 1-pointer over Munchlax, but Munchlax is there to like handle Spectre or stuff like that, so it's like fine in that role. But yeah, it would be cool to have Tera low kicks. That mine hits like a truck. Just really cool offensive team you have here with all the speed and all the momentum you have into it. Espathra, maybe that's a Pokemon I feel like you could give up here. 13 points is a lot without Tera. Lumina Crash like hits super hard, and you lowered special defense, like that can rack up. I probably get rid of this and maybe get a ground type that could rock, and maybe have him in. Like the score would have been great in that role. Obviously, he's not going to be there, but I'm sure there's Pokemon in the 13-point tier that I would like more than Espathra. Let's see. Lycanroc. I think Lycanroc would be really cool on this team. Give you a fast Pokemon to set up rocks like at the beginning of the game. Seems pretty decent with this build. But maybe you wanted something as like a special breaker. Greninja is also a pretty good special breaker, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe better removal on the team because you're going to be have so much momentum. Your removal is Talonflame, which is fast enough and can definitely do so in a pinch. Actually, it has priority Gale Wing, so you could always remove if you really wanted to. But and you have a lot of fast taunt to where like you could probably prevent rocks going up close to every week if you really wanted to. But yeah, just a lot of bulk on this team. Just hopefully your offense out-offenses their team, and hopefully you can prevent hazards going up as much as possible. I feel like that's why Lycanroc would also be pretty cool on the team. Like fits with the offensive mode that this is. My number 6 team is Nono, and like again, this was one of the earlier teams I looked at, and I thought this was going to be like a top 3 team for sure. It's still very good nonetheless. So we got Tera, normal poison and fighting Meloetta, and we've seen that Meloetta's very good in this Tera role. Tera Flying, Fighting Water Braviary, and Tera Psychic Steel, Poison Chimecho. Pros in this team. Hazards are quite good. Clefable, very reliable rocker. Garchomp, reliable rocker and spiker. Infernape, can run rocks you really wanted to. Spikes Meowscarada and Toxic Spikes Meowscarada, like perfect hazards on the team. Great. You have good momentum with Meowscarada, Meloetta, Infernape. Braviary's fine in that role too. Knockoff is pretty good. Clefable definitely can run knockoff. Infernape with knockoff is pretty cool. Meowscarada with knockoff definitely hits pretty hard. Healing Wish, you even have 2 Healing Wish users, which are pretty cool. You can get into like Blastoise or Meloetta trying to sweep. Even Garchomp trying to set up multiple sweeps with Scale Shot. Goldengo, Clefable seems like a pretty good defensive core to get. Pretty surprising you're able to get both with Garchomp and Meowscarada. Like these top 5 are just really, really good. And it's like just a good mix of physical breakers. Garchomp, Meowscarada, really good physical breakers. Infernape too. Goldengo is a great special breaker. Meloetta is a super great special breaker with Terra Axis as well. The cons, a little more speed would be great. Again, it kind of falls under the guidelines I was saying, base 110 speed. You want at least 2 Pokemon that are higher than that, and this team only has 1. Meowscarada's good. You don't want to run Scarf Meowscarada a ton, though. Scarf Infernape is pretty free, but it doesn't really beat Iron Moth or like Latios. So that's unfortunate there. Blastoise seems at 11 seems a little bit high of a price to not have Terra access to. It seems like just not that strong. It's fine for spin, and like you don't want to run. I don't even think Chimecho gets Defog, but Braviary gets Defog. I'm like very confident. I had it for a season and didn't use it. Yeah, it does have Defog, so you probably want to run, I guess, Blastoise remove over these 2 or at least over Braviary for Defog, but it's okay. I feel like you could go with a cheaper option than Blastoise for removal, but it does give you reliable spin. So if that's what you really want, like you could run 1, 2, 3, 4. You could run these 6 every week and probably make playoffs. So it's kind of hard to complain about Blastoise in this role here, especially because Clefable, Goldengo is like a good enough bulky core to take on whatever you want. But I don't really see like the mode Again, I think I said that a couple teams ago, but there's really no creative mode I can like outright win the game. Garchomp, it's hard to get a scale shot sweep going because a lot of teams will run Tera Fairy to make sure Garchomp doesn't win, and like a lot of teams will even run Tera Fairy plus like Air Balloon to make sure Garchomp has to run a third coverage move outside of like Sub or something like that. So you just run Sword Stance, Earthquake, Scale Shot, and then you have to run like Stone Edge or Fire Fang or something to make sure you can hit Fairy types on an Air Balloon. Meowscarada doesn't boost speed. Shell Smash Blastoise, I guess, is your speedy win condition. And I guess another mode you could go is Meloetta with Pirouette form. That is a mode that you could go on this team. It's interesting, and I don't know how often you run it. And there's like a big opportunity cost because you have to run Relic Song. But that's like a fair mode to run on this team. I think I just like the top 5 options more, but like this team is like, I could see this team winning a championship. Like all the rest of these 6 teams probably are championship worthy. Next we got Alhados with Tera Psychic, Fairy, Poison on Uxie. I think that's a pretty cool Tera option. Tera Fire, Fighting and Grass and Tauros Blaze, which I think is a cool Tera option. And Tera Bug, Water, Steel, Vespiquen, which I think is also a cool Tera option. Good Tera users here. Cool offense. Like Spectre plus Ursaluna. Like tough to switch into those mons. Spectre is like defined defensive pivots, but like it can like get out of hand really easily if you let it. Ursaluna doesn't really have too many defensive pivots into it. It's just slow. And you can just revenge kill it pretty easily. Would be great if you had Wish or Healing Wish into Ursaluna to give a recovery. You're going to win the hazard game because you have Hisuian Samurott plus Glamora. Like you're always going to be getting hazards up pretty reliably. You have Glamora that can Rapid Spin if you had to. I don't believe Whimsicott has Defog. Whimsicott does not have Defog anymore. So your removal is going to be kind of limited. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but you basically have to rely on Mortal Spin from Glamora to do so. It kind of seems meh. Honestly, maybe I switch Nono and Hothatos' team on second thought. I think I will. So Hothatos down to 6. We'll bring Nono up to 5 here. But I mean, this team is still super cool. I really like the Tera options on this team. I think Tera Uxie is a menace. With Tera Fairy and Tera Poison are the perfect typings there. Poison to make sure you're not weak to Toxic, and then Fairy you can sweep teams with Draining Kiss. Tauros I think is cool as a Tera option. I think that could sweep as well. With having what are the Tera options? Fighting and Grass. I think they're good. They're good combinations to paired Fire. Yeah, this team is just super cool. Whimsicott is, like, I don't know what Whimsicott does in Generation 9 without having Defog. It's kind of tough. It's their second speed, but the speed is kind of weird on this team with Tauros being, I guess, your best Scarfer, like, offensively threatening Scarfer on the team. You do have Hisuian Samurott, good priority. Raging Bolt, good priority. Like, you have, and Whimsicott with good priority. So, like, you have ways to, like, handle that the team is kind of slow, but definitely weird. Removal, not the greatest. You do have Defog Shiftry as well. That definitely does keep hazard removal. So it's like fine, not great. You could run Boot Spectre a lot of weeks and be probably in good shape. Ursaluna doesn't really too mind about hazards being up. Raging Bolt could run Boots probably a lot of weeks and be okay. Though you probably want to have the option to run Booster Energy. Yeah, and it would be better if you had better momentum. Like Uxie momentum is good, and Volt Switch and Raging Bolt is good. I feel like you want a little bit better momentum option to get into Spectre and Ursaluna. The Samurott gets flip turn, so but you're not gonna run flip turn Samurott and actually click it a lot. I probably put this team at 6 over Nono's team, but I mean obviously I think this team is championship worthy as well. I think the last 6 teams are. Number 4, Christian. Yeah, this team I think was the second team I saw. I was like, ooh, gonna be tough to beat this team, but I have 3 teams that beat it. So, but still really, really good. You have Tera Normal, Dark, and Fighting on Porygon Z. You have Ice, Electric, and Water on Cryogonal, and you have Fairy, Water, Fighting, and Carbink. So, like, these top 4, they're super, super threatening, and I think they cover all their weaknesses pretty well. Blaziken I'm not the biggest fan of, even with Speed Boost, but a lot of people are big fans of it. Earthquakes aren't going to be hitting it as hard with Rillaboom, so that's a cool combination there. Landorus hits super hard, doesn't have a Rock Polish, unfortunately, but tough to switch into. And Palafin, like, all 4 of these Pokemon have, like, pros and cons to them. Blaziken, you need Speed Boost to, like, get threatening. Landorus is just not as fast as it could be without Rock Polish. Palafin, you have to switch out on. But there's enough momentum that you can, like, get in and get out Palafin pretty easily. Rillaboom gives grassy terrain, which could help your opponents avoid it to a KO. It really depends. And your spikers aren't the greatest to, like, help with that either. Drowlodon, Landorus, don't want to run rocks a ton. Drowlodon's fine as a rocker, but I feel like it's a little underwhelming. But, like, for 7 points, it's definitely good value. But I don't know if you want that to be your primary rocker either. The Tera options, I think, are good. I might go Tera Dark on Porygon Z, but... or, what is it? What do I have here? I have Ghost over Dark. That makes a lot of sense on Porygon. Just to, like, avoid being the fighting types, as opposed to Dark. I don't think that's going to help it too much, because you're already resistant to, like, Dragapult, Shadow Ball, or something like that. Yeah, this team is just seems super, super scary to face just with those top 4. Just puts it in the top 5 for me. Though, I'm honestly thinking this team might also jump over Christian's team. I could see Nona's going up to 4. Now I'm dropping this team down to 5. But still quite good. But it would have been better if you had a better spiker than Carbink with this team. With so much, like, momentum and so much offensive pressure these top 4 have, you really want ways to like, use spikes and break down the team even harder to make sure you get those kills, especially with Rillaboom providing health, so it's going to be a little bit harder to KO stuff. Not a lot of recovery on the team. Like, Slowbro is your Pokemon that's going to be sitting there and clicking recover, or like a Slack Off, and I guess Cryogonal too. So I usually like having a couple options on the team. Maybe you want one other, like, defensive option that can, like, sit there and absorb hits and have, like, slow momentum even. You don't really have that on the team. You just have fast momentum, which isn't the worst thing, but I feel like you would like to have it. Removal on the team is Rapid Spin, Default, Cryogonal, which I think is fine, but opportunity cost of running Cryogonal on a team, but it's definitely okay. You just want a second option. But yeah, still a quite good team. I think I do bump up No-Nos after, like, looking at the teams, like, up the 4. So there you go. See if it overpasses Marcelo's team at number 3. Probably not. So they have Terra Steel, Ghost and Water on Fortress. We got Poison Steel, Water on Weezing, and Dragon Steel, Fairy on Appleton. The speed. That speed is quite overwhelming. 124 speed with booster on Iron Boulder. 116 speed with booster on Iron Valiant, and that Cinderace 119. That's, like, pretty elite speed, and it's not like you have a ton of speed gaps below it that are, like, compensating for that. Albemola, pretty cool bulky option. I feel like it would be a cool Tera user, but I think your Tera Captains are fine. I don't think anything that threatening, just because you have, like, so much offense in your top 5. Like, your Tera Captains be a little underwhelming, but, like, filling defensive niches are okay. You probably want to bring these top 5, like, maybe, like, every game, or maybe, like, at least 4 out of 5 come every game, and probably 5 out of 5 come every, like, maybe at 50% of games. And then you're left with, like, 1.5 slots to bring your last 5 Pokemon. Wigglytuff for your Dragapult matchup or whatever. Even though I don't think you're... Yeah, for your Dragapult matchup, though, Iron Valiant plus Crocodile is pretty good in the Dragapult. Even Zapdos is fine into it. Or Spectre, I guess. Crocodile's okay in the Spectre, too, but I guess you have to worry about Colbur and Draining Kiss and all that. Cool hazards. Crocodile's a good hazard user. Fortress is definitely fine, and can remove hazards if you needed to. Though, Fortress being your only removal, you'd probably want a better second option, especially with how passive it could be, especially with how strong your offense is. But it's fine. Like, Fortress can definitely get up spikes. That's definitely good. The momentum's not great on this team, though. It's U-turn Cinderace and Volt Switch Zapdos. I guess slow Volt Switch Fortress, but you're probably not going to run that too much. It's okay. I feel you kind of want it a little bit better. Toxic Spikes are going to be kind of annoying unless you run non-Levitate Wheezing, which I think is probably not generally good on it. And your removal's not great, so Fortress is going to just have to spin a lot. Or you're not going to run Boots on a lot of these Pokemon. You can run Boots on Cinderace and Zapdos. And I guess you could short change with Cinderace, which is fine. Ideally, you want to get your own hazards up first with Crocodile, being a pretty good rocker. Would be good to have another rocker. I guess Wigglytuff is fine in the niche mashups it comes. You'll probably just run Rocks Crocodile a lot, which isn't the worst. Especially with like the offensive capabilities of your top 3 Pokemon. Like, you could be like a spot span run Crocodile as like a rocker and defensive every week and still be okay. Like, I don't think that's that big of a deal. I don't know if you switch out Wigglytuff for a better rocker, but I think Wigglytuff is good on this team. I think this team is definitely in the 3rd slot, though. I don't think Nuno's team passes it. Like, the speed on this team is just too good to pass up on in the offensive breaker options. Really neat team. But we got number 2 as Unknown Pingu. So, Tera options are Tera Shaman with Grass Fairy Fire. We got Tera Flying Ground and Fighting on Oricorio, and that's all forms, which seems pretty neat. And then you have Tera Cloth with Rock, Grass, and Flying. Tera Mismagius would be so cool on this team. I think you get rid of Tera Shaman and just put Tera Mismagius. I think that would just make the team a lot more threatening, but obviously have this at number 2. This team is still quite good. Cool speed. You have Weavile plus Azelf. That's 2 Pokemon above 110 speed. You're definitely in the clear there. Mismagius is a pretty cool option, especially if you give it Tera Access. I think it just makes it that much better. Like Tera Ghost, Tera Fairy, and Tera Electric or Tera Fighting as your last 3rd, but you probably want those top 2. Removal is good with Oricorio, Corviknight, Tusk. Like, you don't have to worry about removal. You probably don't have to run Boots Weavile too much. You give it more options to run Bandit and such. You probably still want to run Boots or Oricorio. This could be all 4 forms, so you don't know which form is going to be going into the game, and the ability for this to the setup seems really, really good. And giving it Tera Ground and Fighting are really good options for Oricorio, especially Ground. So I like this. Like Tera, the Pom Pom form with Ground is a really good option on Oricorio. And I think Fighting is going to be pretty good for like the Psychic version and the Fire version. So I think this is you pick pretty good Tera Captain options for Oricorio. Good bulk, mix of bulk, like Melodic Shaman, Corviknight, Weezing. They can be pretty bulky. Really good offensive options with Weavile, Great Tusk, Azelf, Mismagius. You have like good physical breakers. You have good special breakers, good physical setup potential with Great Tusk and Booster Energy. Azelf with a Nasty Plot potential here. Oricorio with speed boosting ability there. Cloth can even like speed boost and be annoying there. With Anger Shell. Really cool options here. I think Ghost Spam could be a little annoying into this team, I guess. Your Ghost Resist is it just Weavile? It is just Weavile, but Weavile handles Ghost type super well anyway. It's probably not the biggest deal. I think that's really it in terms of what I wasn't really liking with this team. I think the defensive coverage on this team is good. Offensive coverage is good. Like, really well put team. Rockers, I think, are good with Azelf, Great Tusk. I guess you'd want Spikes on the team, but I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world because you have Toxic Spikes. Wheezing is super reliable. You can definitely get those up. And you can pressure poison types, obviously, with Great Tusk and Azelf. If you're going to bring your grounded poison against this team, like, these 2 Pokemon have a field day. So, really cool, really well-constructed team. And number 1, I have Jace Kerf. And you have Dragapult. So, like, it's going to be... Dragapult's probably going to put you at top 5 on the list, and, like, the rest of the team doesn't disappoint. Like, the team is super, super good. So, we have Tera Fairy, Steel Fighting on Gardevoir. Tera Dark Poison and Fairy on Zoroark. And then Tera Grass, Rock, and Fire on Lilligant. Lilligant being 3 points in Tera Access is so good. You got really good value out of that. You also have 1 point left over, which This team is super good, even having that 1 point left over. Zoroark, I think, is fine as a Tera Captain. It's like fits in a good speed tier on your team, so I wouldn't get rid of it. It's not as great on Wi-Fi because it reveals, like, being disguised doesn't, like, and you have Tera, like, it shows that you are this Pokemon. I don't think that's the case on Showdown, so that's not the biggest deal. And Gardevoir having Tera, super, super strong. You could just boost up your coverage already with Moonblast, or you have now coverage with Steel as a good resist, and fighting to hit Steel types. Like, it's great Tera options there. Tera Psychic, I think, would have been fine, but I think your 3 are probably the best 3 that you could have. You have Dragapult and Sneasler. Like, just having those 2 offensive options there is just so good. And then your defensive core, like, complements really well. Metagross not being passive, Moltres and Rotom having momentum, Moltres having reliable recovery, and having momentum to get into Dragapult and Sneasler seems really good. Lilligant as a Tera Captain is just ridiculously good. Being able to go Rock and Fire, which I think are the 2 best options on Lilligant, you could just sweep with this Pokemon right here. Good bulky offense core, good mix of physical attackers and special attackers on this team, nothing being terribly passive. Donphan being really good removal and a good rocker. Metagross plus Donphan, you really don't need any other rocker on the team. But Dunsparce is nice to handle Spectrier. If it's like Scar Spectrier against this team, which it could definitely be. Dunsparce is really good in this role as like a defensive pivot into that and to any other ghost types. Because if you didn't have Dunsparce, ghost types would be quite good against this team. Like a Scarfsmith Magius would look great, but Dunsparce like really shuts that down. Would be cool to have like Thwackey or something on the team to pop Sneasler and Unburden a little easier. That's like really the only thing I would want on this team. But like again, I think all 10 Pokemon have a really legitimate role on the team. So I don't know where you would have fit that on the team. So I think this team pretty easily number 1, though this team also feels really good as a second team. But that is my analysis. I probably went way too long here. But it's always fun doing this, so definitely don't mind. It is an hour 20 minutes. That's I feel like it could have gone longer than that. But I don't know if you guys want to hear me talk too much. But again, thank you, Meme, for bringing this up. I enjoyed it the last time I did this, and it's always fun looking at these teams, doing analysis. Hopefully, my analysis made sense. If you had questions, you could definitely reach out to me. If you think any team should have been rated higher or lower, I settled on Nono's team as rank 4 as opposed to rank 6 initially. But a lot of these teams are really good. Even the teams I had lower ranked, I think, have good potential. And there's still good Pokemon left that you could pick up and I feel like impact your team pretty significantly. Baxcalibur at 17 seems quite good. Ursaluna seems quite good at 17. I guess Mon doesn't die to any hits. Like that seems kind of crazy that it's around. Tinglu is a really reliable defensive Pokemon with hazards. Terrakion seems really good. Probably wouldn't get superior for 14 points no Tera though. That seems kind of bad. But a lot of these offense options seem quite good. And I think there's still good Tera options left. So you can like definitely like change the course of your team if you're not liking something. But yeah, hopefully you guys had fun listening to this. And until next time, later guys.